Hello everybody. I'm excited to be back for part 4 of our Fungible token series. Thanks for watching so far. Thanks for everybody who has used the work we've done so far and minted ICDV. It's been really fun to watch that come in. Today we're making it much easier for you to mint ICDV. We're going to walk through adding a widget to our ICDevs webpage. So how are we going to do that? I'm going to show you all the different things we're going to do. This is a little bit hacky because we have an existing site, but I think it'll show you how easy it is to put internet computer content into an existing site. So you don't always have to start from scratch. Let's go to our desktop. We have a website for ICDevs that isn't much to look at, but it was easy to build. It's a simple static website. You can click through, look at different things. This is all built mostly using Markdown. So how do we do that? Well, we're using a library called Jekyll, which is actually a Ruby. I believe it's built on Ruby on Rails. And it lets you define your pages in Markdown, and then it compiles it all for you and creates a website. So we have that, and now we're able to go into like this post directory, and you have this easy layout. You can copy and paste some content, and then you just write Markdown. And when you are ready to, you can just run build exec Jekyll build, and it takes all your files and all your posts and creates a static site and puts it into the _site directory. So to host it on the internet computer, we just need a DFX file. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say that we have a canister that is it's a front end type canister. The entry point is index, site index HTML, and the source is in site. And now for pack tool, we use Jekyll build. And so when we do DFX deploy -- network IC, it will upgrade the site as a front end site and upload any changed files that we have to icdevs.org. Additionally, our site uses a Jekyll theme. That theme is this Jekyll theme. It's, again, not a lot to look at, but is super easy and to read and implement. I'm going to actually run this build. I'm going to call serve, and this produces a deal here where I can go see. And what we want to do is we're going to go to our donations page, and I would love to put a widget right here on the donations page that lets you mint ICDV. If you remember from our past videos, we need to approve the user, or the user needs to approve our canister to take ICP, and then our ICDV canister needs to pull that ICP and mint the ICDV. What do we need to do first? Well, we need a starter. And because I have a static site, I don't want to start from scratch. I don't want to build an entire single page application. I already have my blog. So I'm going to use this starter that Ryan did. It's called Vite-React-Motoko. And if you pull this, you'll get all set up for a very simple site that is a single page application that wires a bunch of stuff up for you and gives you Motoko code on the back end that you can begin to start coding. It gives you the web app and React that lets you start editing and building your own application. We don't need all of that, but it's a good starter. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to fork this, and I've already done that. So I'm going to go find that data. And when I pulled it down, it pulled a bunch of, when I cloned it, it pulled a bunch of Git files and other stuff. I'm just going to kind of grab what I need, which is the backend folder, Vite-React-Motoko. And I'm going to paste these files in. I actually don't need backend because I have my own, I've already built all my stuff. So let's delete backend. I don't need my dfx.json because I'm not going to be deploying anything from this. I don't need mops. I do need my package.json because I need to install a bunch of these libraries. I need my TypeScript, I need my Vite. This index.html is where the app starts, and you can see that it has a root ID and it pulls in a script, a TypeScript file that is the main application. And if we look for main.tsx, we can see that this is a React file that does a good bit of declaration here. So can't find anything. We got to fix that. npm install. This will install everything we need to build an application. Looks like we can take this mops. We can go in here. Anything that has mops in our npm package.json file, we can remove a lot of this. So we have everything installed. So let's look at our main file here. This uses a package called ic-reactor, and ic-reactor has all of the Dfinity code in it. So we're going to use ic-reactor to pull in all of the Dfinity libraries that we need, but I'm not exactly sure how to use this library yet, and I'm going to get more familiar with it. But for now, I'm going to remove these actor providers and agent providers because we're going to handle login with plug wallet. And I already know how to do that in a React app, so I'm going to start there. So main calls app, and app is up here. So I'll leave this here. I'm going to start pulling over code because I've built this out before, and I don't want y'all to just have to watch me write a bunch of code. Let's talk about plug first. So Plug Wallet is one of the most popular wallets on the IC. You can download Plug Wallet from plugwallet.ooo, and it becomes a item here on your Chrome extensions. Now there's a documentation site as well at docs.plugwallet.ooo, and I pulled a lot of this information from there. So I think most of this is up to date, the developer guide and getting started. And we'll see that there should be this windows.ic.plug, and this will be important later. When you install these plugins, they install themselves somewhere in your application so that you can grab a hold of them and use them. In this case, it's window.ic. So I think the easiest thing to do is just going to be to pull all my code over, and we'll paste it in, and we'll see what's broken, and we'll walk through it together. So we have a bunch of import statements. We'll fix those in a minute. We have a function called big-int to float string. This lets us take a balance of ICP, which is a natural integer with 8 decimal places, and convert it into the actual amount of ICP dot the number of decimals, which is 8. We have our core function. We have a number of values that we track across our state, whether or not we're connected. This is if plug is connected or not, whether or not we're currently loading. We keep track of our ICP balance, our ICDV balance. We need to set up our actors to interact with these backend contracts. So both our ICDV actor as well as our ICP actor. And then we want a principal. We want to know what our principal is so that we can show it to the user and they can send ICP funds to their principal so they can mint. This use effect here runs, if there's nothing here, it's going to run the first time through. And so we have this check connection that checks window.ic.plug is connected. If it is connected already, we handle login. If we don't, we're just going to leave everything alone, and we'll wait till the user clicks login with plug. This effect here is triggered whenever our actors are instantiated. So if we can't go get our balances until the actors are instantiated. So when these change and get populated, we'll go get balances. This follows the is connected. So as soon as plug tells us we're connected, we go and fetch the user's principal as well as set up their actors. To fetch the principal, we call this plug agent, and if it exists, we set the principal to get principal, and it's a string. To fetch our balances, whenever this is called, we want to check and make sure our balances exist. And if one of them is missing, we say, get out of here. We don't need you right now. Once we get past that, we just call ICRC balance of for both the ICDV and the ICP canisters and pass in whatever the principal is that plug is giving us, which would be the logged in plug account. And then we set those actors. To set up the actors, we have to call this create actor and pass it in our canister ID as well as the factory. Once that's done, we can set the actors as well. There's a few debugging statements in here also. Handling the login, whenever somebody clicks login, we're going to handle that. We're going to set our loading to true, and we're going to try to see if we're connected or not. If we are connected, then we're going to set connected to true. If something happens and we lose our connection, it should get set to false. Handling mint, we'll look at this a bit later, but once there'll be a mint button, we will ask the user in a prompt, how many tokens do you want to mint, or how many ICP do you want to use? We'll take that amount and make sure they have that in their balance. And if they do, we will approve the amount, and that this is our production canister, that it can spend that. If we get an OK, meaning the transfer from was successful, we're going to call mint from ICP, and we'll pass in the amount E8s and the sub account. And if that all works, we'll tell them that the mint was successful and what block it was in. Otherwise, give them an error so they can get in touch with us and tell us, hey, it's not working anymore. So that's all the code that we had to write, JavaScript wise and functional wise. We have to write some JSX now, which is a form of HTML that has some scripting inside of it that React uses. And we have our app, and the first thing we're going to do is check if we're connected or not. If we are not connected, we're going to show a button that says login with plug. Once we're connected, we want to show the ICDV balance, your ICP balance. If your ICP balance is greater than 0, we will show you the mint button. We don't want you to try to mint if you don't have any ICDV. We'll tell the user that what their principal is so they can send ICP to their principal and mint, and that's it. Now, there's a few things here that are obviously missing because we have lots of red squiggles. The first is our declarations. Declarations were interesting. I'm going to go over to our ICDV tokens project that we've used in previous parts. And to produce these declarations, DFX has a DFX generate. So I'm going to call DFX generate on prod token and DFX generate on NNS ledger, because those are the two actors that I need. If you look here, you'll see that I've run these previously. It'll compile them, and then it outputs these declarations, TypeScript files and JavaScript files. Those are over here. Under source declarations, we should have NNS ledger. I just think I grabbed all 5. And then we also need our prod token, we need all 5. And I moved those over into my launch. I put them under source declarations. So let's go into source and say we want, and we'll just copy those. So prod token will come over here. And then, okay, so we have our declarations in here now. And so when we come back over here, some of our squiggles are gone. We're still missing service. So I'm going to come back over here to my declarations and look at this index.d.ts, which is my TypeScript declarations. This has been this way forever, and I don't understand why this is the case, but they don't export this, and you need it almost always in your TypeScript. So I'm going to go in here and export it for both my NNS ledger as well as for my prod token. Once we've done that, now we have even less squiggles. So what are we missing now? Window.ic.plug. So I'm still trying to find the plug type definitions. You used to be able to get those open sourced somehow, and I've forgotten how to do that. So I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to create a file in source called plug.d.ts, and I'm going to say that window IC is any. Now, typically it'd be great if we had the type definitions, but for now that will work. Yep, that's most of our squiggles. What's in main? Okay, so in main, we don't need this. We're not using reactor anymore, so I think we can get rid of that. We actually don't need any CSS because our application isn't really going to have a front end that we use. It's only going to use that HTML. It's going to get injected into our other site. So you can delete this index.scss. You can delete in your assets. You can delete basically everything here. Before we build, I'm going to do a couple things. These are not things that you would know unless you banged your head against a wall and figured them out, which I did earlier. So hopefully you just get the output for fun. So let's look at this Vite config, and I'm going to add a few things to it. This build block, I need to pull some stuff over here. Right now it's going to put everything in .dist, but that's not particularly where we want it. We want our files to go into the .asset dist folder. So in our website, we have this assets folder. Vite pulls all these assets in and puts them into the site directory when we compile. And so you can see I put that in there, and it's already putting stuff here. For these file names, we want the name of the file to go in. So ours is index. We want it to go into index.js. This gives us a unified name. For caching reasons, it usually puts a piece of the hash at the end of the file, so that if the file changes, if you have cached your JS, it will serve it up again and your browser will pull it down. We're not going to worry about that right now. We're just going to do index.js. And then this was a fun one. Cursor is a minification framework, and it has some features in it. One of the features being that it will let me say that in my global definitions, I want to reserve IC. And if you do find an IC, I want you to put it in some other IC variable name. So this worked. I don't know particularly why it worked, but what was happening was React was injecting a bunch of global variables into the Windows scope and overriding window.ic. So these Vite configs made it so that the Vite compiler, when it compiles React, makes sure that IC is not used. Another change that we need is if we look at our code in our declarations, there's this interesting thing that happens. It sets the canister ID equal to an environment variable. And I guess DFX handles this and pulls something in from canister IDs. We don't have that in our site, so we need to do an environment file. So we have a .env file, and we're going to paste in the NNS ledger, ICP ledger, canister ID, the prod token ID, and the network that we want to use in this application. And just to be safe, I'm going to copy my package.json from when I did this before so I don't miss anything. I think only Cursor is missing. And then I also got rid of a bunch of stuff that we don't need for the IC. And then I will do npm run build. Is that right? Oh, this is a test file. I guess we can just call this prod token. Okay, so we still have this issue with our window.ic. This plug.d.ts file, I put that in the wrong place. So I'm gonna cut that and paste it into my source folder. And I need to do npm install after my change to my package.json. It compiled, and this came up over here. And now when we go to our donations page, nothing happens. Why not? Well, we didn't actually change the page. So we have to do that. That's our last step. One more thing that we want to do is in our config.yaml, there's some settings here to include and exclude certain files that Jekyll ignores by default. And we're going to exclude a couple things. We're going to exclude this Vite-React-Motoko. Because every time we change something, we don't need the whole page to recompile. We only need to recompile when we build our Vite site. We need to find our donation page. Donations.md, we see that there's layout home and that we include relative content donations. So it's actually on content donations, which are here. So at the top of our page, we're going to put in two things. The first is root, which is what our application looks for to wire itself up. And then we're going to point to this distindex.js. Okay, so we put this in now, and we have saved. We refresh now. We see login with plug. Ta-da! I am logged in with plug here, so we can see that I have a little bit of ICP, and I have my ICDevs tokens. So we'll log in with plug, and you get this that pops up, and we say allow, and it's going to run our code. Here's my ICDV balance, here's my ICP balance, and I have a little bit of a button here that says, how much do I want to mint? 0.01. It's going to say, do I want to confirm this? I say, yep. And I wait a minute. It tells me that my ICP has been authorized for minting, and to click OK, which I do. There we go, mint successful, block 31. Click OK, and I should see that I now have 569 ICDV, and my ICP went down by 0.1. So when I'm ready to deploy to my site, I'm able to go over here to this, and I want to make sure that I build this one last time. And then I should be able to do just dfx deploy network IC www. And when I do that, it's going to run against the asset server that's already up there, say which files have changed, which files haven't, and push up my new code. I'm not going to run that right now because I've actually already deployed the site and updated some text and this, that, and the other. So if we go to the actual ICDevs.org site and go to donations, we should see that we can see my thing here. And I already connected, so it's giving me this, and I can allow, and it will show me the same thing up on the IC. If you're curious how I did the domain, I'm not going to cover that in depth. There's actually a page on internetcomputer.org that will walk you through all of this, how to register your custom domain with the boundary node. There are some files you have to put into your website. So you'll notice on that included files, there were a couple dot files that I manually included in Jekyll. So those were to specify what the boundary node needs to confirm that I own those domains. So check that out if you want to get your own custom domain. But all this together with a Jekyll site that lets you publish information about your project, a little bit of React code, and our ICDV token project, you should be able to launch a project that begins to raise funds and produces something amazing on the internet computer. So use this for good and go do something amazing in the world. And I will see you in part 5, where we will probably go deeper into ICRC 2, 3, and 4 and the code behind those. So I'd love for you all to now go and mint ICDV. And I think the first 1,000 ICP gets a 1,000x bonus. And what are we gonna do with ICDV? I'm not sure yet. Hopefully something fun. Again, it's just a toy token, and it is helpful for us cryptographically to prove that you donated to the charity in case you need it for tax purposes. But other than that, it's not a financial token. It's just for fun and to show your street cred that you have helped ICDevs.org produce public goods and educate people about the internet computer. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you all next week.